Today, we're gonna do a deep dive into some vintage Gibson acoustics. And I know that you guys, it doesn't seem like you like the acoustics as much as you like the electrics. And if that's true, let me know. And if it's not true, please share the hell out of it so that people can be happy with this 1942. I call it the SJ45. Now, I've spoken to John Thomas, who is the authority on all guitars made by the Kalamazoo Gals. If you don't know who the Kalamazoo Gals are, when the men went off to the war in the 40s for World War II, the women were left at the factory to make the guitars. And John argues the greatest guitars from Gibson came out during this time period. I'm not going to argue because some of the best guitars I've ever heard were from that time. Especially this one. This is my favorite sounding Gibson acoustic. This guitar was a one-owner guitar. Went off to World War II, had this commission. So this went with him to World War II, and then was in a barn in Maine for years and years and years. And it was in pretty awesome condition considering, but it needed a neck set because it doesn't have a truss rod, despite being from 1942. And I believe the only thing that are not original are the buttons on these tuners. This is before the SJ Deluxe. It's got similar features to the J45 and what was to be the SJ Deluxe that came out just after this. There is no banner on this guitar. So most guitars from this time period had a banner, but as I was informed by Willie Hanks, it's not the fact that they weren't putting banners, it's just they ran out of the banner headstock apparently. That's what I heard. I don't know. This is a prototype guitar, or as Gibson put it, it's just a one-off guitar. There are 16 on this 8074H, which is a batch number. There were 16 guitars that they made. I don't know exactly what ones they are, but those were Kalamazoo Gals guitars, and I'm guessing some of them are similar to this, and this is basically just a one-off kind of jumbo guitar, and it's the greatest Gibson I've ever played. Like if I have just one guitar on a song, this just, it sounds exactly how you just hope, like, I'm a Martin fan, but I'll tell you the greatest Gibsons kill all for me. This is one of my greatest scores ever from the internet because I was going back and forth with this dude because it was posted online as non-functioning. And I'm like, I don't know what kind of mess it was. It's a 1964 Hummingbird. He wouldn't tell me what exactly was wrong with it. And I finally just said, look, dude, there's probably so much work that needs to be done to this that I can't be into this for a crazy price. So I paid $750 for this guitar. And I gave it to this budding guitar student because it needed a lot of work. And he disappeared for a year because apparently he took this guitar apart and was not skilled enough to put it back together. So his roommate, who felt bad, put it back together for him to bring it to the next level of disarray. To which I then brought it to my real luthier, Steve, who I trust emphatically. And Steve basically said, first off, there was a plastic bridge, which is worth a lot of money because it was an original bridge and it was on here fine. But plastic bridges sound like poo-poo versus Brazilian rosewood sound great. So he said the best thing you could do is put a Brazilian rosewood bridge on this if you want to play it. Now, if you look at the back, it's really not that bad. And the neck and frets are completely straight. There is just some top cracks and, like, you know, it's got a lot of this proof of life. And it's one of the greatest sounding guitars. It's a guitar that's been saved, but the other thing that's pretty interesting about it is it's not a sunburst guitar, or at least it didn't start as a sunburst guitar. This was actually a natural Hummingbird, which would make it, if it was in mint condition, $8,000 to like $12,000. Way more valuable. But somebody oversprayed this to give it this nice kind of cherry sunburst. But look, man, I don't really care because this guitar, it plays great, it sounds great, and structurally, it's totally fine. And it just never leaves my hands because I don't think I'll ever find a better one. And I guess when I do, maybe I'll let this one go. But until then, guitars are like animals. When you adopt them and you take on the responsibility, like maybe it doesn't have an eye. Maybe it has problems with its stomach. Maybe, because the animal is beat, it has bad habits. You can't keep it around kids. But like you have the heart, like Harvey Levin from the People's Court, to take all these dogs into your house and just love them. That's how I feel about Gibsons in a state of disarray. When I got this guitar, it was listed as a 1930s L30, which, by the way, for years I thought it was an L30 until somebody actually pointed out, Benny, go look at what an L30 looks like. I did. It's an L50. And I believe it is a 1934 based on the headstock inlay, because if you look at this headstock inlay underneath all the dust, which gives it that official look. You can always date Gibson guitars, or for the most part, date them based on the inlay. And it was I think it was after 33, they stopped doing the Gibson. Now, I believe these guitars started in 34 or 35, so this is probably a first year. And this may even have been an older neck that was sitting around, which would explain. But look at these tuners, just beautiful open back, all original. The neck, like this is the greatest relicing. When I got this guitar, it was covered in mold. And my buddy saw it and he's like, we started repairing the cracks and he's like, dude, your guitar is completely filled with mold. He basically steamed all of this. Now, if you look at the side, I lost a little bit of the binding because he took off a little piece of the wood and basically inlet all of this. So if you look at underneath the heel, there's a little bit of space, but that's because he basically flattened out all these pieces of wood, put them all together, rebuilt the bracing like a psychopath. I don't know if he was on crystal meth sitting at home because like he destroyed my other guitar, which his friend brought back to life, but he fixed this L50 and man, he also even put new frets on it. I mean, this guitar sounds great. It has that super lively, snappy sound that you get out of a box like this. If you're playing in an orchestra, this is how you'd play. And this guitar just has such a sweet tone. And I have to tell you that from when I first got it to now, it sounds way better. It does. And it's gonna last another 100 years. What a cool guitar. An L50, they say. Here's the baby of the bunch. But you'd never know from how much it was thrashed. This is a 1972 SJ Deluxe. So what that Kalamazoo Gals guitar was foreshadowing. Some of them had dots, some of them had multiple dots, some of them had no dots. This guitar sat in a closet for 20 years, something like that, without a neck. This neck was completely sheared off, and my buddy put it back on with epoxy. But I have this in what's known as Gambale tuning, as in Frank Gambale, the incredible guitarist. Really cool tuning. It's A standard, but the top two strings are an octave lower. So it's reverse cowboy tuning. So you get these really cool piano kind of sounds. So considering the fact I couldn't play super awesome up here, I had a nut cut, specifically for this guitar so I can play. So listen. 1972 SJ Deluxe. Bought it for 60 bucks and then paid, I think, 100 to put the neck back on. Behold, literally, B25. It's a B2512. The B25 is very similar to the LG1, but the difference is the LG1 has X bracing, and the B25 takes after the old LG2, and then it has ladder bracing. Ladder bracing by many is considered to be more of an open sound. A lot of people, like the LG2, are more desirable than the LG1s. For that reason, I personally love the LG1s, but they do sometimes have a boxy sound. What made me get this guitar was, first off, it was like 900 bucks or something. And how'd you get so many guitars? I don't know what I'm gonna get when I get up in the morning, but if I see a 1967 B25 12 for $900 with the original case, and it actually has a wood bridge and the Lear tailpiece, which, because a lot of these had plastic bridges and they had all kinds of different stuff. I love this Lear tailpiece. I don't know if it's original, if someone added it on, but it's rad. And the fact is you have a nice piece of Brazilian rosewood right here. Maybe it's East Indian. It kind of looks like it's Brazilian because it's got those chocolate swirls. This is, I think it was 1966 is when they stopped allowing people to cut down the Brazilian rosewood. So this is right at that time where you could probably still get some Brazilian rosewood because it looks mighty chocolatey swirl to me. But this is a B25 12 string from 1967, and it's in pretty awesome condition, but it's played. You know, like you could see somebody was down here doing their thing. And I love that. I honestly don't really care for pristine guitars.
Why don't you smash that subscribe button already?